Greetings and welcome to Two Melanated Minds. I'm your host, Chris Enlightened, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Dr. J. Today we will be going deep on family rebuilding in uncertain times. You know, growing up in the hood, I've seen firsthand how the breakdown within the construct of the Black community and consciousness. It's only natural for that energy to bleed within the homes of the Black family. I feel as if community and family building is paramount to the success of us usurping our power. What do you think, Dr. J?
You know, one of the biggest issues right now is actually this has been an issue for years and we just didn't pay attention. That in the 50s and the 60s, it was about family. And what has happened is we've gone from a collectivist culture to an individualist culture. And when we did that, our families broke up. And I want to specifically focus today on, even though the breakup and the dysfunction in families goes across all ethnicities, you know, it just crosses everyone. It's not an issue with just one group. I'm particularly, because we are two melanated minds, interested in discussing, you know, the issue with us during this COVID-19, because the issues that we had before are now exacerbated by us having to be home and not using this time to win with our families.
You know, that's one thing that I had to think about hard, this COVID-19, and how it's been forcing me to talk to my mom more and talk to other family members more. And, you know, I'm home more often than I am that I'm gone. And it's like me and my wife, you know, we've been together 26 years, but, you know, when I'm gone out of the office going to work and I'm coming home, we're not spending that much time during the week together. But now that I'm here all day, we're just rekindling our relationship. And even though we have a strong friendship, it's gotten even stronger. And I'm finally understanding the importance of me being home. And I couldn't imagine not being here with my wife and my daughter. You know, as a child, my father wasn't in my life at all. For those people who know me, they know that I'll say about 100% of my life without a father at all. I mean, we would go 10 years without even wishing me happy birthday or Christmas or anything like that. So I was forced to embrace so much feminine energy because I was raised by my grandmothers, my great aunt, and my mom. I didn't even feel comfortable around other men because I was surrounded by women all the time. I was getting 100% of this female energy and not enough masculine energy. So when it came time for sports and things like that, I felt inferior. And growing up until I became like 16 and 17, when I learned how to, you know, box and take martial arts, that I finally embraced my manhood. And I see a lot of men out there going through the same thing, and a lot of women too. I feel as if the Black community or the Black family household needs both 50% masculine and 50% female energy to survive.
You know, I can relate to what you're saying because I grew up in a family where there's 95% males. In fact, I was the only female in my family, in my state growing up. There was just me. I had one cousin. Mm-hmm. She moved back to Detroit, and I was it. So I never was around. I never was close to females. I've always had more of a kindred spirit with males because, you know, my mother, you know, she was a career woman. She worked a lot. My dad, career man, he worked a lot. And so what happened for me, not having any sisters, not having any female cousins, there was a young lady who was dating my older brother, and when they broke up, she became like a mentor to me. And she taught me everything I needed to know. Not that my mother didn't, but she worked swing shift. And so, you know, this woman, Angie, she was a big sister to me, and she taught me a lot of things that my mother didn't get the opportunity to teach me. And so because she did that for me, I ended up being a big sister to others. I did that for others. I paid it forward. And so what I found is, I mean, I've even noticed, like for my family, we're a very, very small family. The majority of my family's in Detroit or in Selma, Alabama. So in California, there's just us left. There's nobody else left. And but we're very close knit, very close. You mess with one, you gotta mess with us all. I mean, we're not doing that. We're not playing that game, and so we're very, very close, and we love each other, and we're there for each other no matter what. But I noticed there's a lot of families that don't have that closeness, and as soon as the matriarch or the patriarch of the family transitions, the family unity is gone. Everybody's fighting over money and over this and over that. And right now, like I said in our previous episode, we've been forced to lay down. We've been forced to stop and stay home, which is, like you said, is forcing us to really, if you're using your time wisely, to really think about what really matters. You can't spend all day on the phone calling everybody, are you okay? Anything? You can't do that. But your family members, any gripes that you have, any fallouts that you had, it's time to mend that, because we at this point are clearly seeing we are alone. Nobody's coming to rescue us. And the strength of any community, the strength of any ethnicity group, the strength of any culture, of any people is in the family. In order to destroy that culture, that ethnicity, in order to destroy those people, you have to destroy the family. What has happened to the highly melanated or Aboriginal family for 400 years? What have they attacked? What have they not allowed us to do? We have to think about that and look at what's going on now. And are we helping to perpetuate the demise of our families? Think about it.
Well said. I think a lot of people are literally parroting their own demise, speaking ill will of themselves and their culture and their races and their women. And I remember John Henry Clark once said that no race of people ever done well when their women weren't doing well. And that's one thing that stuck out to me as a young man. Like, whoa, when I find someone that I'm going to love, I'm going to make sure that she always feels like a queen. And at the time, I didn't have a lot of money. And I told my wife to be at the time, we've been together 26 years. And I always told her, regardless of how much financial income we have, you're going to always feel special and like a queen. And to this day, she still does. But, I feel as if the experiences a child has in their early years sets the tone of how they'll see and experience reality later in life. When I was younger, even though I didn't have a father at home, I had shows like, Good Times, What's Happening Now, Cosby Show, and I was able to extract the jewels from the fathers in those shows and implement them in my life when I became a man. Sometimes when you don't have a father in the house, it could be a good thing. I know it sounds a little strange, but you have a blank slate on what type of father you want to be. I never understood why when I was younger, when I was calling out to my mom, I said, why don't my daddy love me? Why don't he call me? I haven't heard from him since I was 5 years old. I'm 16. What's going on? And she would always tell me it's a good thing that he's not in your life because you may pick up some of his negative traits. But she would look me dead in my eye and say, remember this feeling. Remember this feeling of being alone. So when you become a father, you won't impart that in your children. And I took it a step further. So any young man, any young woman that needs an ear or an older brother or father figure to step in, I'm always quick, fast to fill that role. And I never realized how impactful it was until I've been, I'm in my 40s now with some of the kids that I was reaching out to in my 20s. They're, young men and women now. They always tell me, like, I remember how you made me feel. You made me feel as if I could do anything. I could always talk to you. And just having a shoulder to lean on, and just someone you can run your ideas, someone that believes in you matters. Because sometimes, even if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't have the will, if you know you got a brother around the corner that believes in you, it's going to compel you to do well because you got someone counting on you to do well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we have to take a good hard look at our relationships. We often focus on our intimate relationships with our spouses, but you made a point. And, according to Piaget, the first 5 years from the moment of conception to the age of 5, whatever, experience that mother that's carrying that seed has, it, it, it affects that child. The personality is formed within those first 5 years. So, it's really important that even if there's no father in the home, I mean, my dad was there. He worked a lot. Even if you have a father in the home or not, it's important that the environment be an environment that is supportive, that has structure, and that has a sense of community. I mean, we kind of touched on this before, but we don't have communities. We have neighborhoods. And if, for those of you who grew up in a community, you know the difference. You know that your neighbors were also responsible for you. We always had a crazy cat lady. Lady with 10, 20 cats living in the house. You always had that. You always had the candy lady. You always had, the ice cream truck that would go down the street. You always had the old, nosy, older elder who would always be in your business. You always had that. You had that accountability because they loved you and they cared. And you weren't just representing your family, you were representing your community, your city. So when I rep my city that I grew up in and was raised in, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. The good part of it, the bad part of it, the ugly, the indifference. I rep it because that city and every experience that I had, regardless of how the outcome was, made me who I am today. And right now, we have so many families, that took for granted, I'll go visit them this summer. I'll visit them next year. I'll go see my parents next month. And then overnight, you can't see anybody unless you drive by in a car. And you wish you had the time. Or somebody transitions within 2 weeks. And you wish you could have had that conversation or asked that question. And so we are the main group of people that the world has done everything in its power to destroy. And how do they destroy us? Our women, our families.
That's so real because I remember when I was little, and there was a lot of women in my community that was on public assistance, and they were getting food, they were getting money, and it seemed as if they didn't even need a man. And they walked around as if, I'm getting my money, I'm getting my food, I don't need no man to do nothing for me. And that did something to the minds of the men coming into the neighborhood. And there weren't many men around. But I remember growing up and I was thinking, like, you know what? There's something going on with the consciousness down here where I didn't even feel comfortable. And I love my people, but I didn't feel comfortable dating anyone in my neighborhood. And I remember when I got my license, and I didn't start dating until I was driving. I was like 16 before I had my first girlfriend. And I would always go outside of my community to find a girl that was like in a home with a father or lived in a house and had grass and things like that because their mindset was different. They were experiencing the dream that I've always had. And even though I wasn't able to experience that dream, I was living vicariously through the stories they were telling me. I would come home or go over their house, and I would see their dad there, their mom there. They're having dinner at a table. They're not just sitting on a couch eating. And I was like, man, I want this one day. And I know, even though I was looked at as one of the good guys in my neighborhood, I never would give the other women in my neighborhood the time of day. And looking back, I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing, but there were a lot of other good women out there that I missed. I don't want to say missed out on, but I judged them because of where they were from. And I was giving them what was given to me. And it was like, I didn't understand it at the time, but I just wanted better for myself. And it was as if my mom understood that in order for me to do better, I had to go out and get better. And I was looked at as a sellout, when I was in high school, because I wouldn't date the neighborhood girls and things like that. But one thing I realized is a lot of women these days are like too strong on their kids. And I remember that my mom was always telling me, I'm not raising no punk, you bet not cry. And she never really let me tap into my feminine side because I don't know, I guess because my dad wasn't there, she was real strong on me. So by the time I was like 20 years old, I was too manly because I thought that's what I needed to be. And then my wife came along. She was like, nah, that ain't how men are. It's okay to cry. I was like, it is? She was like, yeah, I'm not going to judge you. And she taught me how to tap into my feminine side. And that just took our relationship to a whole nother level. And even though I'm a martial artist, I'm a warrior, I'm a tough dude. But it's okay. I want to let the young men know, like when I teach them, when I get them, I let them know, hey, young man, go ahead and cry. If you need to cry, go ahead and we wash our bodies. Crying is a great way to wash your spirit. Get that out. Go ahead. I think there needs to be more of that nurturing within our community.
Well, one of the things that we lost, and I can't speak for every community. Again, I'm in Southern California, and I have a home in the South. And when I'm in the South, I have a whole different mindset. In fact, usually when I leave California, that's where I'm at. That's because that family, that I can't explain to you the feeling that I feel as soon as the plane lands in Atlanta. That feeling that I feel knowing that I'm amongst my people and that the elders, I don't know what anyone else's experience is, but I have a lot of respect for my elders. And so Big Mama, Medea, Grandma, Nana, they were the staples of the community.
Mm.
They had respect. If Big Mama said something, that was it. The matriarchs. Now, we as a people are really not, every culture has a different way of seeing things. We are basically matriarchal. Patriarchy is a European concept. We're a matriarch because, life comes from the woman. And when you don't respect your woman, your community suffers. You don't hear other people disrespecting their women, calling them B's and H's, and you don't hear that. And so that's something that we need to stop. We need to stop disrespecting our women. And another thing we need to stop doing is stop beating Black women, because what has happened is, first of all, the New Deal, which is AKA welfare, was introduced. In order for that woman to feed that family, the man had to leave the home. So the system has been created to destroy us from back in the 60s when the New Deal was happening. But what we did, now if you give somebody something and you keep giving it to them, why should they get out and go get it for themselves if you're going to keep giving it to them? The Bible says if a man, you can feed a man and he'll eat for a day, but if you teach a man how to fish, I'm not a Bible scholar, so I might be a little off. But if you teach a man how to fish, he can eat for a lifetime. And so what's happened with the New Deal is they were just handing out government cheese and fish. And so why should you get up and do better if your rent is $150 a month and they're going to give you food? And this is one of the great bamboozlements that have happened with the highly melanated uh, community is that we don't respect our men, but then our men have to know how to be men. That, yes, that means you can have emotions. Yes, that means that we all have a masculine and a feminine side. We have to go back to being responsible for each other's children. If somebody comes to you and says your kid was down the street throwing rocks at cars, and another adult says, hey, I saw your son doing this, don't go off and cuss the person out. My son wouldn't do that. Why don't you walk with them so you can see what your son is doing? And then you can correct it. We need to go back to that. We need to go back to old ways of how the family was. You know, that's why I used to love this show called Soul Food, because it shows the strength and resilience of the Black family. And that's what we're missing right now. Are we resilient? Yes. Are we getting it together? Yes. But we still have a large portion of us that need to sit down, be quiet, and take a good hard look at how that family is functioning, and call the disorder in the family and go into action and do something about it.
You know, one thing
We got to rebuild.
We definitely have to rebuild. And one thing I realize is when a kid grows up in a household where marriage is non existent, they don't think being married matters. And I remember when I was little, there was no one in my community married. I mean, I really don't know anyone in my whole community of thousands of people that were married. And I grew up with my mindset like, you know what, I don't need to get married. If I get a girl, that's cool. But not until I became a man did I realize the importance of being married. And I didn't get married until my wife and I had our child. My daughter was 6 years old, and she asked me, well, Daddy, why aren't you and Mommy married? Other friends of mine are married. And I looked her in her eye, and I was like, baby, I'm going to marry your mama. And 2 years later after she asked me that, we got married. It just wasn't even on my radar, you know? And one thing about the Black community is there's no rite of passage for men. It just seems as if once a man gets 18, they just need to automatically be a man, and it doesn't work like that. I remember one of the hardest things I had to deal with, and it shaped and it molded my consciousness and my reality, is when my mama gave me 30 days to get out at 19 years old. She was like, you know what, you got to get out. I was like, what? She's like, you got 30 days. You just into girls and partying. You ain't thinking about your life or nothing. So you want to be a man? You got 30 days. So 28 days went by. I wasn't planning. I wasn't thinking. She's like, you got 2 days. What you doing? I was like, you serious? She was like, you got 2 days, 48 hours, and you got to go. And I struggled for about 3 years, but I haven't been back since. And that struggle at 19 taught me how to be a man. It was like my rites of passage. I learned how to scratch and survive. I learned all about consistency. And the jewels that my great aunt, peace and blessings be upon her, that raised me and my mom and pretty much the whole family. She was like the big mama. You know, my grandfather had 28 children and didn't take care of any of them. So his sister, my great aunt, pretty much raised everybody. And she did it by cleaning people's homes, washing people's clothes, worked hard. And I was able to see her consistency and her relentless love. And I mean, she taught me how to tie my shoes, sew clothes, just you name it. She taught me how to be a man without being a man. And the biggest thing that she told me was, a real man takes care of his woman and he take care of his family. So no matter how much money I got in my pocket, if my wife and daughter got to eat first, they eating first, you know? And that concept right there needs to be like inseminated in our Black men. We need to learn and see the beauty within the struggle, to see the beauty in building something with your queen. And the women need to see that too. It's easy to jump into a relationship when your king got everything, but when you scratch and survive with someone and you make it, it makes a home. It makes a real home that you built together. And that's one thing that's missing from the consciousness and the mindset of the Black community, I feel.
And you know what? That is so true because one of the other things that really plague us is that we're run by the media. Whatever
Mm.
the media shows us, that's what we do. So if all the actors and actresses are getting a puppy and putting the puppy in their purse, we turn around and do the same thing. Listen, I grew up. My parents been married now 67 years,
Mm.
and I grew up thinking marriage is, if I need to be married. This is the thinking, the thought process that was put in my head is that, you got your education, you got married, you had your children, you're supposed to have a better life than your parents gave me, gave you. And this is the first generation that is doing worse than their parents. Prior to that, every generation has done better. And so a lot of people don't get married. Why? Because they see so much divorce.
Ooh.
It's a real thing. I've experienced it myself. It's a real thing. It's a horrible thing. But what we've got to do is we really, and sometimes it takes you years to realize some things because insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. But we got to understand the power of the institution of marriage. It is a protection for that spouse. If you're just living together and you're together for 10 years, yeah, the marriage, okay, it's a piece of paper. I get it. But let something happen to one of them and the other person is going to have hell getting anything that person left because you're not married. And different states have different laws, true. But to be able to tell there's a difference between we're living together and to tell your children, you're married or the commitment. People don't want, it's such a permanent commitment. But what I found, even in my own life, is that we want to jump and get married, and we don't even give ourselves an opportunity to get to know ourselves, let alone someone else. It's two imperfect people trying to have a perfect relationship that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. And so if we spend time like now, during this pandemic, for all of you who are single, it's easy for you to say you're married. I've been through, let me tell you, there's nobody that's been married that would tell you they haven't been through some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because anything worth having is worth fighting for. It is not get married and be happily ever after. That's bull. That's a fairy tale that came from Disney.
Mm.
Especially not to us. Marriage is a revolutionary act. It's saying, regardless of what goes on in this world, in this country, I have a partner. I choose to build with this person. Everybody wants somebody who's already built the castle. Well, what are you bringing to the party? What are you bringing? What you think about that, Chris?
Unbeknownst to most people, there are more millionaires that are married or that have a destiny pair than people trying to do it alone. Whenever you take one and add two, it's always stronger. And that's the mindset where most people have it twisted. When you get with someone, I feel as if we're all born with a reservoir of wealth. And it's hard to usurp that wealth looking through your own eyes. But when you got someone that loves you and believes you and see your potential even though you don't, they can help you become the you that you came here to be. That happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, I was who I am today, but I was always looking at reality outside of my eyes, and I was never seeing me. And my wife told me years later, she was like, Chris, you've always been a leader. You have a natural ability to get people to corral around you and listen to what you say. You could sell anything and you can do anything you want, but you have to believe it. And when she told me that, I was like, you know what? Well, let me start trying stuff. I started writing. I started doing public speaking. I started teaching. I started helping people. And sure enough, what she's seen in me started to come out. Just the thought of her believing in me enough made me realize I literally reconstructed the tapestry of my reality around her thought of who I was. So for people out there saying, I don't want to get married, I don't want this, but if people were to really know the secret sauce within marriage is that you create a destiny pair. That way you can live out your destiny. I feel as if everyone has masculine and feminine energy within them, whether you're a man or woman. The only way to tap into that universal oneness is to get your other part so you can reach the mountaintop together. And that's my experience with that. Reaching a mountaintop and we're steadily climbing up. Yeah, every marriage has challenges, but challenges help you evolve. When you go through a challenge, you're that much stronger than you were before you started. So I just think that marriage has this low vibratory hue that we focus more on the divorce, but we don't even give any light or any shine on all the successful marriages out there. I've literally had friends tell me, Chris, I call my wife Divine Queen, what you and Divine Queen had, we didn't even think existed. But we share our relationship on social media, everywhere, so people can see that it can be, it's obtainable. But I don't think that we show enough of real love, true love, twin flame love to let people know that it's obtainable. You know?
Well, you know what? Again, who are you? I mean, there are people that get, and I'm making a broad statement,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not saying that I haven't experienced any of this, but the bottom line is this. People want a relationship, and the first relationship they need to have is with themselves.
Mm.
Their spirituality is one relationship. The second relationship is you. How are you going to expect to be in a long-term commitment to build? So you're not just building a house, 2.5 kids, 0.5 being Fido, a BMW in a driveway. That's not marriage. That $20,000-$30,000 on a wedding to me is stupid. That's not marriage. Marriage is what's after all the googly gob and all the infatuation is gone. See, love has stages. And there's different types of love. And most of the time, it's lust. And until you fall in love with yourself, and you understand the nuances about you, and you understand where they come from, and you understand the good, the bad, and the ugly about you, until you are real with yourself, only then can you attract a partner. Because every time we meet somebody, we become what we think they want us to be instead of who we are. And by the time the real person comes out, you're already vested in the relationship. Too many people see the warning signs that this is not a good match, but they ignore it because they're happy they have somebody. Until we have strong relationships with family, with our intimate partners, we're not going to raise strong kids because we are the models for those kids. Those kids see we used to say, don't do as I say, don't do as I, don't something about don't do as I, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, don't do as I say. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? You saying one thing and doing something different. They are not paying attention to what comes out your mouth. They're watching what you do. And if you are making bad decisions for the family, all you're doing is modeling that for the young princesses and princes that you're raising. Everybody's going to make mistakes. But right now, we are at a pivotal time. We are in a time where we have no choice. We must rebuild our families. We must rebuild. We are under attack. We've been under attack for 400 years. We must learn who we are. We must learn our story does not start with enslavement. Enslavement is the last chapter. We must learn and understand what our family's life is like in Al-Kebalan, the continent of Africa. What means more? When I was in East Africa, and I'm going to refer to it a lot because that totally changed my life. That trip totally changed my life. That marriage and family is number one. Number one. Nothing comes before the family. Nothing. And over here, we can't even get along. We can't even visit our grandmother. We don't call. We don't check on anybody. No, if they have nothing else, they may not have much, but they have each other. And they barter. And if one family's hungry, then everybody else in the village picks their crops and takes it over there so that family can eat. That's what we need to get back to. We need to get rid of all this BS, and I'm not speaking to her and I'm mad. I didn't say you have to be in their face. But if it comes down to it, would you sit and watch your family members starve and not feel anything? They have to do some really, really, really bad stuff for me to feel like that.
Well said again. You know, I want to tell the men and women this. You attract who you are. If you're looking for someone to make you feel happy or loved, it's not going to work like that. No one can make you feel any way. It's a choice. But if you feel love, if you feel happy, you're going to attract someone to meet you where you already are. For those of us who were raised in a single parent, well, you know what? For those of us that were raised in a single parent age, we have a blueprint embedded within us that displays a clear picture of the imperfections of our parents. You can either anchor your consciousness in that pain, or you can choose to learn and evolve past the need to have a need to suffer. Sometimes it's okay for your bloodline to start with you. You mark that line in the sand and start a new train of winning for your family. You want to close with anything, Dr. J?
I'd like to challenge everyone who is listening to this to call a family member that you haven't spoke to, regardless of whose fault it was. And I challenge you to have a conversation with them out of love and try and resolve the issue, because you don't know who's next. I challenge you to do something out of the ordinary. If your family's that bad, I don't blame you. But reach out to someone who may not be blood, but may have been there for you the whole time. Let's not forget our elders, because our elders are libraries. And when they transition, a library burns to the ground. Get that history, our story, now. Learn how to put your family back together. Because trust me, as I'm speaking to you today, there's going to come a time when we will either unify on our own, or unity will be forced upon us.
Well said, Dr. J. Again, I appreciate all the listeners, anyone taking time to listen to me and Dr. J express our views. Again, this is a non-scripted call. We're just two melanated minds on the call and just expressing how we feel about things. So on that note, I want to wish you all peace and love and winning.
Winning.